I like the drums behind you, Reed.
Yes, I just figured I'd just do that this time. So have
Yeah,
the
that's
kit,
cool.
the drums, the
See,
drums.
I got my rig behind me.
Yeah.
Yeah, see?
Every
Badass.
gig.
And your tech. Is that
Yeah.
your tech?
Yeah, it's my
Yeah.
tech. His name is Freddie Glee.
Yeah.
Freddie. How's it going, everybody? This is Rushy Talk here, and today we're going to be talking about our Rush tribute band's experience and the origins of it and how we came along playing in Rush tribute bands. So we got Mr. Chad Kolskar over there.
What's up? Rock and roll, baby.
And Mr. Sean Gannum.
What's up?
And we got Mr. Reed Hayes down here, our ringleader.
How's it going? I forgot to introduce myself. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So that's interesting. Now, this band has been around, basically the origins go back to the mid-'80s. Now, I'm kind of like the new guy in a sense. I didn't come until like 2000, 2001, maybe even a little later than that. So why don't you guys go ahead and kind of tell the story of the origins of it and how it kind of became a professionally touring Rush tribute band and what it was like back then too.
Okay, well, I can kind of go into the origin of the tribute band, and Reed can talk about some of the road life and that whole experience. Basically, we met in high school. We were high school age, and back in the early 80s, Rush was all the rage. They were super popular, and we were young, aspiring musicians. So naturally, we loved Rush, just like a lot of you guys out there. And basically, Reed and I hooked up through some different friends, and the town we lived in, there were not a lot of musicians, but basically there was a big mystique behind who could play Rush, what musician in town could play Rush. So Reed and I hooked up through those means, and we obviously found that we were both up to the task. And that's kind of how it started. But it initially actually started us jamming some Rush, but we really put more emphasis on writing original music in the beginning. So before we thought we would, quote, be a Rush tribute band, that thought never came to mind until probably about 5 or 6 years later. So as far as the origin of the band, Reed and I hooked up. We started playing with other various people in town, our buddy Tony. And that was our first taste of playing music professionally. So our first cover/original band did our original music that, of course, sounded like Rush. And we had a lead vocalist. So we were a 4-piece. Well, while we started gigging professionally, we were a 4-piece. But we started playing professionally, I'd say around 1987. No, 88.
As a tribute?
No, that was just as a cover band that was known for playing a lot of Rush and also playing a lot of original music. So we played around town doing our original thing at places like Stetson University, Daytona Beach Community College, a place in DeLand. Raid, what was that place called?
The American Room.
Yeah, the American Room, which was one of those old time rock clubs that were prevalent in the 80s and up to the early through the mid 90s.
Yeah.
So so we were doing our original thing, playing Rush covers along with all kinds of other cover songs in a working cover band. And I had moved to Orlando, and now we're jumping ahead a little bit. We kept doing our original thing, and I met someone when I was in college that claimed to be a guy who could do Geddy Lee. So he ended up being able to pull the job off. So the Geddy Lee, and
that was our first real. I don't mean to cut you off, but I know who you're talking about. And he actually proposed the idea of doing an all Rush tribute band, just playing Rush. And if you remember, I really didn't believe him because this is back when tribute bands really weren't a big thing. I mean, you had Beatlemania, but you didn't have a whole lot of other tribute bands out there. And the idea of just playing Rush only, I actually thought I was like, you can't do that. But we ended up doing some gigs, and I was proven wrong. I was like, wow, people will come out to see this. I really didn't think people would even come out. I thought the idea was just kind of like, goofy. I thought it was cool to play Rush in a band, but I didn't think you could go out there and just be an all Rush band. And so that's how that started. That whole thing of us actually going out as just a Rush tribute band started what was that around? I would say that was more like around 90, 91.
That was 1992.
92.
Yeah,
right.
1992.
It was early 90s, and that was when we started playing more premier gigs. Big,
yes.
we actually had an agent.
Oh, wow.
And gigs that were actually paying. And that was the other thing too, is that we couldn't believe that we were actually getting paid to do that. It wasn't just we love playing Rush, but they're going to pay us too.
So with that lineup, were you guys touring just locally, or were you doing like going out of state or out of?
We went out. We went to like, we stayed in Florida mostly, but we did venture to some road trip gigs. That were like driving for 6 to 7 hours away. But it wasn't until later when I hooked up with which Sean was also involved in that too. But Sean ended up going to college, and I ended up going off with the 2112. That's a whole long story. I have the connection with that because Sean was also involved, like I said. I ended up touring all over the East Coast, all over for 3 years. I toured with 2112, all up and down the East Coast, from here up to New York. Went to the Midwest. We went out to Texas and did El Paso and places like that. But I would say, that was extensive touring. That was also 3 guys in a van, no crew.
Yeah.
And we just rode around, and it was actually a pretty crazy time, but it was a lot of fun. But that's, like I said, that's and I know the 3 of us have done similar things too since then. This is, like I said, that was same around 1995. By that point, we were full on in the Rush tribute experience. We were doing it.
So you're touring. So what happened? So Sean, you got busy with work and you went and did other things, and Reed went into 2112, or?
Now this is actually what happened. So when I met the first Geddy, like he said, like Reed was saying, we actually Reed wasn't even involved at first. I had met this Geddy guy but he had an agent that he knew, and it went through Jam Magazine of Orlando. There was a guy named Brewster that ran Jam Magazine.
Jam Magazine.
And this guy was friends with a drummer in town named Johnny, and we actually did our first debut gig at a place called Johnny's Rockin' Bistro.
Johnny's, shout out to Johnny.
It was funny. Johnny's had the best pizza. Well, that's where all the cool bands played, at Johnny's Rockin' Bistro. But anyway, Johnny kind of had a lot of other stuff going on, and of course I knew Reed and desperately wanted to get Reed in the project. And sure enough, the opportunity came up, and Reed got on board, and we probably played specifically Florida. Like, we probably did that for close to a year at least. Reed and I and the Geddy guy. And basically what happened was the Geddy guy and I had a pretty big falling out. We found out there was some bad business stuff going on. And Reed and I think I was the one who kind of decided I should bail. So then Reed and the Geddy guy ended up finding Mr. McGrew, and then I was just fed up. I was still in college at the time. Those guys ended up doing a bunch of gigs, and then the Mr. McGrew ended up getting fed up the same way I did. They asked me to come back in the band, and so basically it was George, Reed, and myself. And
so George went from what, guitar to bass?
Yes. So he was the Alex guy, and then I
that's going to confuse everyone.
Yeah.
What's that? I know.
It's probably going to confuse people because that's because really.
Sorry, Chad. I guess you're gonna have to do.
No. It's just like I said. It's like to think about that. Like I said, to go into details, like it's a lot of stuff,
So, well, let's kind of get back. So we're kind of in the mid '90s right now. So basically, you, George, and Reed are back together. And what's the name of the band at that point? Is it Rush Hour?
It's called Rush Hour at that point.
Right.
It was Rush Hour from 1989 up to that point. Okay. Because Reed and I and Tony actually did a band called Rush Hour that played a bunch of Rush, and Tony sang. So but anyway, so yeah, we're about 1993 now, and there's one agent that's booking us, and so anyway, what ended up happening is we ended up trying to be exclusive with this agency that was up in Ohio. Basically what ended up happening was, after about I was probably in that configuration of the band at least 6 months on the road. And at that time, I was also getting a lot of calls for movie production, which is what I ended up doing for 10 years. So I kind of bailed because it wasn't the perfect scenario for me at the time. And so then Reed and George had to find another Alex, and that's where the band changed its name to 2112.
Okay.
Yep.
And then,
exactly.
So who was the Alex that came in at that point?
Guy named Jeff Bazemore, and we did that for like 3 years actually.
Okay.
And then I left that because I got kind of tired of the road, living on the road. Like I said, 3 guys in a van, staying in motel rooms and driving all the time. It was a lot of fun. The gigs were great. I mean, we played a lot of great, gigs of hardcore Rush fans all over the country. It was a hell of a lot of fun, but
yeah,
it was also brutal living conditions. I could never do that now. I mean, I was I was in my mid-20s back then, so I could tolerate a lot, but now I could never live like that. But man, it was a lot of fun. We played a lot of great places all over the country. So, and then after that, when I got tired of doing that, I came back and ended up joining another Rush tribute band called Counterparts. And that band never did much, but it was the only Rush tribute band I've ever been in that had the full production. They were all about, we had the revolving drum set and lasers and video screen. And like I said, this is in the mid to late 90s. This is like the late, like 96 or something. The technology back then, was like that we were using was state of the art. Now, of course, it's not a big deal. I mean, but even having a video screen back then was like a big deal, to bring that out. And we did do a few really good gigs, but there really wasn't a good enough market for a tribute band of that kind of, when it came to the show elements of that band. We needed a crew. The money just wasn't there. And we couldn't play all the venues because some of the venues couldn't have, we couldn't bring in a revolving drum riser. They would already have the stage would be too small or something like that. So
you walk in and they have a 10 by 10 tent for you to set up under.
Right. So we had, but it was a fun thing to do. I did that for about maybe a year, 2 or 3 really good gigs with that. In fact, one particular gig we did in Alabama that was huge.
Cool.
Like a festival type thing, you said?
Yeah, it was just like, and the only reason they hired us was because we had all the production. They were just looking for a band that had, all this production. I don't think that they cared that we were even a Rush tribute band. In fact, I remembered we were playing because we were into at the time we were into that the technology Rush, Power Windows. We were doing songs like from Power Windows and Hold Your Fire and stuff. And I remember playing like Territories, looking out at people thinking, I don't think these people know this song. And they just thought it was cool because we had lasers and all this stuff, But anyways.
So that's funny. So that's where I come into the picture because I was going to UCF in Orlando. This was about 97. And Jam Magazine, open it up. Me and my roommate look, and there's a ad says Rush Tribute Band at the Fairbanks Inn tonight. I'm like, holy crap. Oh man, I hope we can get into that show. So I call up Fairbanks Inn. Nah, no problem. Just come on in, $5 cover or whatever. All right, cool. So me and my roommate, Ken Thomas, shout out. We drive down to Winter Park and we pull into the Fairbanks Inn and the parking lot's empty. And we come in.
That's
me
hilarious.
And my roommate, and there's this blonde-haired guy at the end of the bar. Ended up being Paul Lane. That's the first time I met him. That's another drummer in town that I ended up working with. You guys know him, but I'm just saying for the audience. So anyways, we sat there and we saw Counterpart do their show. And I guess it was just like your warm-up before you guys went out.
All it was. It was a dress rehearsal.
Yeah. So I had seen Reed around town and I knew maybe I'd seen you guys before. I'm trying to remember. I don't know.
Yeah. We did a gig in Vero Beach.
That's right.
And it was called what was that place called? What's that?
That's right.
Ebbets Field. Yep. In Vero Beach.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. So I see Reed up there. I'm like, I know that. That's a guy from that other band. So anyways, they do their show and there's nobody in the place. It's 3 guys drinking beer. So then they're like, you guys want to jam? So they called us up on stage. So I'm playing the Steinberger bass and we sounded decent. We're playing with Paul, who, we've never played with before, drummer, but I mean, we pulled off a couple tunes. It wasn't bad. You guys are out there doing beers and shots. So anyway, that's kind of how I met Reed. So at that point, I don't think you were after Counterpart. There was really no Rush tribute happening for a while until I came in, right?
Actually, no. The truth is I took Brian, that was the guitar player from Counterpart, hooked back up with George from 2112, and we went out as 2112 for another year.
Oh, cool.
And we continued the what I would call the more scaled down to earth Rush tribute. 21. So yeah, it was. So really, I continued on for about a good another year after that. Yeah. And that's when I really we pulled the plug on it around 98, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I never involved myself in Rush tribute again until the 3 of us.
And again, it was kind of an accident. Long story short, you and me, Reed, were playing in cover bands, and we ended up crossing paths. And before you knew it, you were in the same cover band I was, same wedding cover
yeah.
band thing. And of course we loved Rush. Had a little bit of a breakup there. So we're looking for a new guitar player. And he's like, hey, my buddy Sean. So of course we all three get together to go out and play Mustang Sally and make some money. And before you know it, we're jamming Rush tunes. And as I recall,
the timing of that for me was perfect because I had just quit my career in the movie business.
Yeah,
literally.
That's right.
Yeah, it was like the most unbelievable timing.
So here I am, though, a Rush freak myself, jamming with these guys that I've seen before that I know have toured and all done all this Rushy stuff. So I'm just happy to be playing with these guys. But, lo and behold, we start jamming more and more Rush. We hear about this thing called RushCon.
That's right.
And we threw together a demo for that at Tony's. We recorded it at Tony's place. And I don't know if RushCon knows this or not, but we set that demo off and we got the gig. RushCon in Toronto, 2003. And we had not done a gig in this formation before. So what we did is we booked a gig at Muldoon's, a little shitty bar in Park. It's kind of a pre-warm-up show, but that was the first time I'd done a Rush tribute with you guys. And then our first real show was RushCon 3.
That's right.
Yeah.
Was that really our first I guess it was our first real show, huh?
Yep.
Didn't we do, I guess, because I know we had done some others. We'd done some casino gigs and stuff like that, but that was afterwards.
That was all afterwards, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that was 2003. So I hooked up to you guys about 2001, 2002, but it was 2003 that we went to RushCon. So yeah, so then we just started. We got in touch with you guys got in touch with the agents that you worked with before, and we ended up just starting booking stuff. Now it wasn't touring per se, like we weren't going out on the road for weeks on end, but we would do like a weekend and hit a couple shows and come home.
Yeah. I remember we went to then we go to Mississippi or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we did New Orleans.
We did a lot of
Mississippi. Yeah, we kept going. We went to Biloxi
Upstate
a lot.
New York.
We went up to New York. That's right. We went to upstate New York, and
kind of all over.
And of course, we did do RushCon 3 times.
Yeah, we did RushCon 3, 4, and 6.
3, 4, and 6. Yep.
Yeah, because RushCon 5 was actually seeing Rush.
So I guess we were pretty busy in the 2000s, but came around like 2010 or whatever. I think I quit. I retired.
Yeah.
We still picked up 1 or 2 shows here or there, but I know it was by like 2005, or I'm sorry, 2013 or 14. I said, nah, I'm done. It's too much work. I love Rush, but hauling all this equipment around, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And so you kept doing it, Sean, right? You continued with Rush Hour.
That's right. Paul Lane actually did some gigs, which we talked about earlier.
Yeah,
and then we also had shout out to PD.
He was the guy at the bar. Yeah.
And then also Greg, which Reed did a gig with Greg as Geddy. He was kind of the acting Geddy.
Don't forget that Sean, we hooked up with George again, remember?
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah.
Probably about, I don't know, maybe a year after we stopped doing it or something. I don't remember what it was. And then somehow the three of us, and we ended up doing a gig with Texas. That's right.
Yeah, Texas and also Tampa.
That's right.
Area.
Yeah. That was it. And then after that was when I think you hooked up with Paul again. Because that was, like I said, there's been so many versions and then here we are, I guess, after that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, after all that, it comes.
Ultimately, what happened is I went through some life-changing stuff. I was like, I'll do, Sean kind of twisted my arm and I said, I'm not going to do it unless I get to do it my way. None of this big equipment. We're going to use technology just like Rush does. We're going to do some things to make it a little easier. Sure. No problem. So we booked a gig actually. And it was, but in the meantime, this was a year ago, Neil had passed. Yeah. So we had booked the gig and Neil had passed and we played the gig, like we had the gig booked for the following week right after that. So basically this year has been the first year I've been back in the Rush tribute for a long time, but we've been booking pretty good. And it, COVID aside, it looks like we're going to have some pretty good gigs coming up and stuff. And I'm excited about it again,
Yeah, me too. And I'm also excited about what we're going to be doing along with the shows is making some videos and putting some cool media stuff together for social media and stuff, so it should be
that's what this is all about. So this is the whole big package. We're Rush Hour. We also have some original music we're going to kind of tie into that because Rushy fans kind of like the stuff we do, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
it's coming up.
Right.
We'll throw it out there.
What better way to tribute Rush to than to write some cool music in homage to them?
Yeah.
We've
been doing that for a couple of decades.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We wanted to, because through the stories that we have just told, original music was always a part of it, as I've said from the beginning. And even when we were playing RushCon, we were writing original music.
Yeah.
And now it's time to start getting that stuff out there.
Yeah, absolutely.